Capitalism is the only measure we know of that it ever made gains on poverty, both in the world and in the United States. So what might we do to engender a new growth surge in America, to resolve this recession, and more specifically, to restart Detroit? I would suggest that there are just a few handful of things we might do, each very difficult. But if taken together, new hope can come for our economy nationally, globally, and locally. The first, of course, is we have to have a mindset that is receptive to, congenial to, the creation of new businesses. When we start out as a country on industrial policy means big firms, big labor, and big government control the outcome. If you hear industrial policy and somebody tries to say to you that this is good for entrepreneurs, you better think hard on what they told you. They either don't know what they're talking about, or else they're trying to sell you a bill of goods. Industrial policy is inimical to entrepreneurs. We need a policy of low taxes and potentially even relaxed legislation for our new firms. How's about anybody who starts a new firm in the state of Michigan is relieved of regulations related to labor law, relieved of state income taxes for 3 or 4 or 5 years. Find that many of the tax advantages provided to huge companies that might move here are at least in small part given to them to make their property or their ad valorem taxes much less onerous. How about a second policy that says it becomes the articulated policy of the state legislature to test every piece of legislation against the standard of whether or not this discourages or encourages the brightest kids in Michigan and middle-aged people with great talent to start a business or to not start a business. The third thing I'd say is, how about thinking very hard about embracing fads and quick fixes? I can bet you the cost of my lunch is free. That people have heard from people talking about how you get the creative class into Michigan and shazam, the state will all be restarted. Or how about people hearing from the Harvard Business School that if Michigan just establishes a cluster theory around biomedicine or something, the state will restart. You want to test that thesis? Take my shoe and walk with me someday. When somebody says, you know what we're going to do here in South Dakota? We've adopted a cluster theory. You know what I say to them? Think hard on cluster. Cluster equals Detroit. Is that what you want to do? We have to have a thesis about Detroit and America. It is divergent. It is, in fact, very multi-industrial. It is a diversity agenda in terms of the diversity of new ideas that are brought forward. How about, as a fourth point, thinking about how we free up our universities to transfer the intellectual property into the hands of people who can commercialize it. You know that most of our universities distort the intent of federal law that was passed to accelerate the transfer of great intellectual ideas into the hands of entrepreneurs. They distort it into thinking that that's intellectual property that they can exploit. And as a result, on average, a great idea that can be commercialized is often slowed out 3, 4, and 5 years in the general counsel's offices of universities, attempting to extort from the professor and pull from the commercializer the highest return to raise the endowment. That's not what the endowment's about. It's not the public service that we expect of our universities. They're not corporations. They are the servants of our society. And how about thinking about immigration policy differently? You live here in a city that has an allergic reaction to the word immigration. Well, let me suggest to you that over 1/4 of the new high-growth businesses born in the last 25 years in the United States was a creation of the people not born in it. Why not let the smartest kids from around the world